You're winning. 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 Hello, my lovely loves. You are winning with another episode of Epic Understanding. I am your host, Coach Love, and I am delighted. Everybody say delighted. Delighted to have Dr. Viviana here to teach us about intimacy. Now, she is best known for her work on the hit show Married at First Sight on Lifetime, but she has a brand new book, The Four Intimacy Styles, and we're going to use them to our very best advantage. August happens to be one of the highest months for divorce, but we still want our intimacy, right? So for that reason, we have Dr. Viviana here to help us lead the way in a tough situation, but I know we can make it through together. So without further ado, hello, Dr. Viviana.
Hi, Coach Love. I'm so thrilled to be here. And that statistic it always makes me so sad. I think about all the kids who are going through back to school and all the
Mhm.
parents who are really struggling to keep it together. And so hopefully we'll give them a little bit of tools to kind of be able to handle this a little bit more gracefully.
You know what? And that's the ticket, right? To handle things gracefully. We can't really help some of the situations we get ourselves into, but if we can figure out how to be graceful about them and use our best practices, then we can push our way through maybe and learn something when we're on the other side, right?
Absolutely. That's the hope.
So let me just get down to the nitty gritty. Can we get it on with someone we're divorcing?
Let me tell you, when you told me we were going to be talking about this, I thought, I have so much to say about this, but
Uh-huh.
none of it is going to be something that I think is completely out of this world, right? I think
Okay.
the truth is, it's already so messy as it is.
Okay.
Why would you want to dip your pen in that ink again? I feel like it doesn't ever really go the way that people want it to.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes we look to exes or soon to be exes for comfort. Sometimes we look to them because we think, oh, one last hurrah. Can I
Mhm.
tell you, I can count on more than one hand the amount of times that I've had clients who are going through a divorce who end up pregnant.
Oh no. Does
Yes.
that still count for a
So
gap?
it's something that I actively will tell my clients. I know that y'all are divorcing. I know that you've known each other and been with each other for so long. And the idea of being with somebody new can be scary, not usually and not always very exciting. Um, or they think it might be such a long time before I ever have sex with someone again that I'm comfortable with. And so
Yeah.
they decide to do it like for old time's sake, and it gets messy. So even if pregnancy isn't involved, it can be very emotionally distressing for
Mm,
one person or for both. And even the fact that it's something that maybe both of them realize there's a reason why we're getting a divorce. Having sex with someone can, not always, but can lead to some mixed emotions and feelings. And it's such a complicated place to be.
wow. So for all the people who decide not to take your advice and dip their toe, because that's what, you know what, that's what they do. Everybody knows we're not supposed to do it. They know, right? What are the pitfalls? What are they really getting themselves into? What's going to happen?
So what they're getting themselves into is typically uh, someone's feelings are going to get hurt,
Okay.
whether it's because they feel like they're being used or taken advantage
Oh,
of,
yeah.
or because it's used as a form of manipulation. Some people will think, well, what if this is our last chance to really see if there's anything between us? And they end up
Oh, yeah.
mishandling the pleasure that comes from being together physically with maybe thinking maybe we have a shot at being together emotionally again.
Hmm.
And it just more often than not, it's super messy, and it doesn't often get to a place where both people feel the exact same way about the interaction, and that can be very painful. It's
I
also
think it's,
confusing for the people around them, for friends
oh,
and family. They're probably like, "What are you doing?"
yeah. Break up to make up, right? There you go. You guys were broken up yesterday. What do you mean he's at your house? What? What? I can think of so many conversations that I've had with girlfriends, and it was like, wait a minute, I can't keep up with you. You're on, you're off. What's happening here?
And then you stop caring as much as you normally would because you
Hmm.
realize, okay, this person's gone rogue.
Hmm.
Um, I can't always be the person to pick them up off of the ground. You know, as a
Yeah.
therapist, it's my job to do that, so I don't ever get tired of doing that. But when it comes to friends and family, there's only so much that you can do before you say, look, this is on you. You need to handle the consequences of your adult action.
Wow. Wow. Let's do another a level in the hat, okay? What are the kids thinking? When the kids see this, what are they thinking?
So they're probably still trying to figure out the why they were together as long as they were.
Oh, yeah.
So many times, especially if they're teenagers or adults, children will be the first to tell you, y'all don't need to be together. You're miserable because they're the ones typically living under your roof or closest to you. And they're really hyper aware of what's happening between the two of you, especially when a divorce is on the table. And so I think a lot of them will say, y'all don't need to be together. And it's not really modeling the healthiest of relationships to go back and forth, especially when your children start to say, hey, we can see this better than you can. And then they start to feel like they have to take care of you, all the while going through their own stuff. So it's not really healthy there either.
You know what? So basically, your advice is don't do it. It's unhealthy all the way around. You're confusing the kids, you're confusing your friends, and you're confusing your own emotions.
I think the likelihood of it going and just being comfortable sex is just so low that it's not worth
Uh-huh.
the risk.
It's
I
not.
also think that for a lot of people, maybe they need to do more work on trying to figure out whether or not divorce is the right option for them versus
Mm.
saying divorce is the right option and then saying, hey, let's go sleep together.
Oh, you know what? That is such a good point, because do you think that desire for intimacy and still wanting to be together is a sign that maybe you're not ready for divorce?
I think that a lot of times it can be very confusing, and I don't
Okay.
understand the need to want to add on the physical confusion, right?
Okay.
It's hard enough. I mean, it's a very difficult decision to divorce. I get so many people who are like, "Oh, I think he's taking the easy way out. He's divorcing me. He's leaving me." It is never easy. It's not easy to stay through and work through it, and it's not easy to decide we're not going to be a good couple together. We need to do better on our own. We need to divorce or separate. And so it's never going to be easy, but I think a lot of people get stuck in thinking, I've already said the divorce word, I've already filed, and so the train is on the tracks. It doesn't matter what happens, we're done. If you're
Okay.
working with a therapist, then it really helps you to figure out, this is your life. just because the train is on the tracks doesn't mean that there can't be any stops. It doesn't mean there can't be any new findings that could help you to figure out whether this could be something that becomes healthier or not. But if you've decided and that's it, and you're merely saying, I miss someone sexually, I miss someone physically, I miss having someone, and you're looking to your ex, you have to know that history does something and it means something, and your bodies remember whether or not your hearts do. And so I think it's just something to be very mindful of and be careful with.
That is such a beautiful way that you put that. Our bodies remember the intimacy even though our hearts and minds want to forget it. Basically, it's what I got out of what you said. I do want, you know what, let us all give Dr. Viviana a hand, because she is coming to us in a storm, guys. She's such a trooper. It is storming where she is, and so that's why her sound is going a little bit in and out. But thank you for your kindness and your patience for, sticking through this. So family, our audience, thank you for your patience as well. We do have Jenica
I'm going to
from,
seek that help.
okay, thank you, from Trinidad and Tobago. And she says, Truth Bomb, I spent years asking myself this question: why, oh, why did my parents continue living under the same roof, being disrespectful to each other? Some adults are really messed up and create messed up children. Grow up already. Now, she still has that. She's a beautiful, successful business owner, and she's still remembering that.
Yeah, it can be
Oh my
very,
God.
very difficult to be a child in a household where parents are consistently going back and forth in the way that they not only celebrate their love, but then also celebrate their anger and resentment towards each other openly. I'm a huge fan of parents showing and exemplifying healthy resolution. It's okay to argue in front of your kids, but you also need to show them the resolution. That's
Mm,
the key. That's where a lot of studies have shown that people fall short in parenting. It's okay to argue. It's not okay to only argue and not show the resolution, because you leave you end up leaving a loose end that kids
okay.
have to put together. And what will they do? They will end up thinking that you never made up,
Okay.
that you're always arguing, and then they'll see and be looking for cues and clues of whether or not y'all are doing well. And I think that for a lot of parents, we just don't think about, um, we're just having conversations in passing, but our kids pick up on everything. So we always want to encourage our children to ask questions, especially when it's uncomfortable or especially when it's asking us about our behaviors. We want that because we do want them to be really well adjusted adults.
Wow. Wow. You are hitting the nail on the head. This is great information.
I've been
So
seeing clients all day. I'm primed. I'm ready for this.
awesome. So this is the kind of stuff your clients come to you with. Do they ask you directly? Can we still get it on? Has anyone ever asked you that before?
Absolutely. They've asked. Most of them don't. So I just tell them, I'm like, hey guys, I know that you've decided today that you're no longer going to be a romantic couple. One of the toughest things that two adults can do is really decide to remove each other and extricate themselves, right, from each other's lives. And part of that is the emotional intimacy, but a big part of that is the physical intimacy, the companionship, the wanting to hug, the wanting to kiss, the building of affection. And you're in choosing to no longer be together, you're also choosing to no longer have the rights to each other's body and pleasure and being a part of that for each other. And that's something that a lot of them have to grieve. But I will
Mhm.
flat out tell them, don't do it, because things can get a lot more complicated and this can drag out so much worse than it already has.
So, how do you grieve the physical connection from someone? Like, what process do you go through for that?
So ideally, and the clients that I work with, I see them both individually and as couples, but ideally they'll have already established a sensual relationship with
Mhm.
themselves. I
Okay.
think having solo pleasure, being really being your own best lover is
Okay.
a great way to live your life, both in partnerships and outside of it. And so for a lot of them, I will talk to them about what it's like to have more of a solo sex life and the importance of that and kind of getting them prepared for that, especially if they're possibly thinking about divorce. That's something that as a certified sex therapist, I'm just kind of it's on top of mind for me, so it's really not
Okay.
that difficult. But I will talk to them about that. I'm a huge fan of people making sure that they have options for themselves. And just because you don't have a current sexual partner that you're active with doesn't mean that your sexuality is on pause.
Mm. What if someone's not comfortable having a solo sex life? What would you say?
So it still happens where people don't feel comfortable with that for whatever reason. Oftentimes it's because they don't have the experience. They've never had
Okay.
anybody talking to them about what healthy, not just emotionally healthy solo sex lives look like, but also physiologically healthy sex lives. We have to take care of our pelvic health. We need to take care of our genital health. I mean, all of that is something that is a part of our body. It's not like it responds only or only needs to be activated during a sexual partnership or during childbirth or pregnancy or menopause. Like we there we are sexual beings. And so oftentimes it's just about educating them on the importance of making sure that you're taking care of your genital pelvic health. And that does include often the experience of masturbation, solo pleasuring. Those are things that are really important for our health. We do tend to have more men who are
Measuring those
in
are
touch with that and who really kind of have been living their lives with having a solo sex life since a much younger age, 10,
I
11,
see.
even sometimes younger than that. And I think that for women, we still have a lot to catch up on, but I'm trying to do my part to really help women to understand the importance of being able to be your own best lover. And I'm actually saying that for the first time here today. I've never said that before, but I kind of like it. Be your own best lover. I feel like that's really important. And I think we need to take the shame and guilt out of wanting to be our own best lovers, but also to be there for a partner as well.
You know what? And I'm just going to expand the idea of being your own best lover to be mentally and emotionally as well. You know, it's a good idea to be your own best friend.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, we don't ever court ourselves. So many times, especially when I'm talking to women about solo pleasure, if they're going through a time of abstinence or celibacy, or if they're in between romantic partners and they just don't feel like experiencing that with a partner, then I will help them to understand that. Okay, well, take yourself on a date. You know, go
Oh,
get a massage, read read some erotica. I have all sorts of projects coming up to help people with this sort of thing, but the idea of taking yourself on a date and treating yourself to a nice dinner, to a
mhm.
great movie, all of those things, it doesn't have to only exist when you're in a partnership. If it does, then you will likely put up with things that don't really fit for you.
Mm. I think that happens too often. I would say in modern times, it's probably one of the only times I've been able to read in his history where women are really owning their happiness.
Yes, and it takes the entire world screaming at the top of their lungs saying, "Come on, women, live for yourselves, empower each other,"
Mhm.
before we actually really start to listen. And that's kind of sad, right? But I'm glad it's better late than never.
100%. Here's a great question from Dr. Lay. He says, is being intimate while separated is it a behavior sign that they may get back together?
If it is, it's usually very short term, because all of
Mm,
the reasons that they're separating and all of the reasons that they're divorcing, they still exist. Just because you decide to get naked together and have sex doesn't change any of that.
mm. Okay, there you go. Jenica says she loves dating herself. She did it during the pandemic. That is fabulous. Um, let's kind of go a little bit further down the road. Your book talks about the four intimacy styles. What are
Yes,
they?
my four intimacy styles. So what the grand scheme of it is that I wanted to write a book that helped couples who really want to stay together forever. They want to
Okay.
have the dream marriage, they want to have the dream partnership emotionally, but
Mm-hmm.
they really want to hold on to the physical intimacy. I know of so many couples, and I'm sure you do too, Coach Love,
Mm-hmm.
where they are excellent at communication. They have fun together. They're friends. You can just see that they really care about each other and they love one another. But over time,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's 2 years in or 20 years in, at some point, nearly every couple will struggle with physical intimacy. And nearly every couple will wonder, can we survive not having the physical intimacy that we want? So after, I've been seeing couples and individuals for 20 years. Um, During that time, I kept noticing, just in the past 10 to 15 years, I started really actively noticing the reasons why people have sex. Everybody can tell you, oh, yeah, sex is a really important part of any relationship. It's very, very important. But then when you start to ask them why they do it, that's when I started to say, okay, I need to get more methodical about tracking why people have sex. So the motivators are what I call the four intimacy styles, and that is bonding, release, giving, and responsive. And what I'm asking everyone to do is there's a quiz online. You can take the quiz, it's in the book as well. It's called the Four
Okay.
Intimacy Styles Quiz. And you can take that quiz, and it will tell you, based on your answers, what percentage of each of those four styles you're at currently. And ideally, you'll want to round out your intimacy style. Like I even have it in the logo to remind me.
Okay.
Round out your intimacy style by trying to experience 25% of each of the styles. So bonding, release, giving, and responsive in every or nearly every sexual experience that you have. And what that will do is set you up for being able to make sure that your needs are being met and your partner's needs are being met for the long term. It doesn't
So,
matter. With these quickies, yeah, you can do whatever and enjoy it. But I'm talking about people who want to stay physically connected for the long term. This is an ideal way to be able to do that and know that you're really crossing off all of the check marks.
so, isn't that work though? Don't you want to get lost in the moment? Don't you just want to ravage your partner?
Well, absolutely, but you still get to do all that. But if you're talking about, most people are having sex once a week,
Mm,
maybe 2 to 3 times a month. If every single time it's about ravaging your partner, well, let's really talk about what ravaging looks like. Is it all about you? Is it all about them? And over time, you may not be keeping the score, but again, there's something underlying that says, gosh, it seems like every single time we do this, it happens in this way, or I don't feel like we're really bonding very much, or it always feels like I'm initiating, or it always feels like you're coming at me asking. And so what I'm trying to do is get people to have a healthier flow and not have to worry so much about what's going to happen down the road with resentment or what's going to happen down the road with habits. We get into habits and routines sexually. And
I
if
think
you're
you're
not
right.
conscious of
Yeah.
them, they can end up being negative or they can end up actually hurting you in the long run. And most people don't even talk about this. So the book is really to try to help people to get talking about it, to be conscious of it. Most
Hmm.
people are not conscious of this. And again, it's for those people who want to be together forever.
I think your book creates a lane for conversation. You know, It's not about a complaint, it's about growing. It's almost as if you're coming into the living room or the bedroom and coaching the couples.
And that's exactly what I wanted to do. So I'm so glad you say that. I really wanted it to be in my voice. I didn't want it to be something that was like super, emotionally really deep. I can
Okay.
get deep, and your conversations can get deep. But this
Mhm.
is for the couple who's like, hey, we don't really know where to start. I'm not going to throw them into the deep end of the pool. So it's like they're having a conversation with me in a session. And what a lot of my readers have told me is that they feel like they can have these conversations. They're not as threatening as maybe they thought it was going to be.
Oh, yeah. That's good because your book acts as a springboard just to get the conversation going. And it's not like you're being picked on or anything like that.
No, there is no right or wrong. Believe it or not, there is no right or wrong. It's just, do you want to try to have the healthiest long-term relationship that includes both the physical and the emotional? Or do you just want to wing it and see what happens?
Okay. Okay. You know what? People have been winging it forever. Let's take a little bit of direction from the beautiful and the brilliant Dr. Viviana. It's not just me. Jenica said we both look gorgeous. So there you go.
Red. I was all about the red today. I just love it.
100%. 100%. Now, look at this avenue. Um, she would like to know, is marriage without sex okay? Is it okay?
Um, I think that it leads to dissatisfaction and resentment overall.
Okay.
And I've seen it. I'm telling you, I have been seeing couples and individuals for 2 decades. And during that time, I'm probably not seeing the people that are perfectly fine with it. But I also don't know that anybody goes into a long-term relationship, especially the investment and the commitment that goes into being in a monogamous relationship forever,
Okay.
expecting there to be no sexuality. Um, Now, there are very valid forms of relationships that do open things up, and you can look for it elsewhere, and it's not as much of a threat to your relationship. But I'm talking about monogamous couples. Monogamous couples, I can't name of one who ever said, I got married hoping to never experience any sexual uh, relationship with them. And so people may get to that place, but I don't think it's where they set off to go. And so what I'm trying to is like to recalibrate and kind of reroute them, right? I want to reroute them to where they feel like if that's what they want, which 9 times out of 10 people desperately want to be able to have it all. They want to have the romance, they want to have the friendship, they want to have the fun, the silliness, the experience of going through life with someone else, and also having their needs met sexually and experiencing pleasure and experiencing the bonding that can come from it. And I think that anybody who tells you otherwise, they're saying that because now they're resolved to, well, that's what our relationship is about. But if you were to ask them early on, they would have never hoped or wished to be where they are.
Mm. I think that's very fair and so beautiful the way you put it. You have someone here that just loves listening to you and reading your content. She'd like to know if there is a health reason for a woman to be intimate with herself.
Absolutely. Over time, if you are not experiencing any intercourse or penetration, if you're not experiencing arousal through stimulation, or even mental desire, all of
Mhm.
those things can change the way that your body is shaped. We can have vaginal atrophy, which, over the course of time, our bodies, especially as women, we near menopause, our bodies, especially our vaginal canals, can really start to change shape, not just through the way that, not through the feeling, right? Because there is the skin is different, and it will start to change based off of the change in our hormones. But it will
Okay.
actually, if there is nothing penetrating a vaginal canal long term, especially as we go through hormonal changes, it will
Mhm.
start to go back to prepubescent size, which can make things very uncomfortable.
Mm.
Um, and that's something that I think a lot of people don't really realize,
Okay.
but things can very much change. On top of that, our pelvic floor health, it affects so much more than just our sexual functioning. At Houston Relationship Therapy, that's my private practice, we recognize the importance of pelvic floor health so much that we have somebody on staff. Dr. Bork is excellent at making sure that everyone knows there is so much more to incontinence. There's so much more to pain. There's so much more to not experiencing orgasm. There's a lot going on there. And so it is a physiological need as well.
Wow. This comment that Dr. Lay wrote here actually makes me sad. I hear a lot of times in my practice that intimacy sex is more routine and primarily for release, at least for couples that have spent a significant amount of time together. Oh, I just go, ouch and yuck.
Yeah, and I mean, I see that a lot in my practice too. I think if it were even that easy to where both people are getting some release out of it, I would
Mhm.
probably not be like, you know, the book wouldn't be doing as well, because I think a lot of people, it's okay for them to be on the same page about things, but there will come a time, whether it's now or after 2 kids or after the kids are out of the house or after you've retired, there will come a time where sexuality means different things for each of you. And if you're not ahead
Maybe
of it,
maybe I'm misunderstanding it, but I'm just like, ew. Honestly, because for me,
release.
it almost feels like do you remember the movie The Color Purple? And
I'm
Whoopi,
sorry, you cut out. Are you worried that it's transactional? Is that what it comes across as?
well,
Like it's maybe a little transactional?
transactional or even worse. Do you remember the movie The Color Purple?
I
There's this,
do.
yes. So there's a scene where Suge and Whoopi are discussing making love to Mr. And um, she says, it feels like he's going to the bathroom on me. That's what it sounds like to me. Like, ew, just horrible. And Sugar's all like, I like it, you know? And that's they're with the
Right.
same man, but it's so different.
Right. Well, I think that there's something to be said about making sure that the physiological act and the behavior of sexuality, it's kind of nice to have that tension release. It's a really nice stress reliever. Orgasm, if you're able to have it, it can be a wonderful thing for you to experience to really lower your stress levels. But we're not pacifiers, okay? We're
Right.
not here to be a comfort blanket or to get your endorphins going. I mean, like that's not what we're here for, I think. There's so much more to it, especially when you're in a committed relationship. So while release in and of itself isn't wrong, it's one of the four intimacy styles. I completely believe in the validity of it. But when that's all you're experiencing from it,
Okay.
especially if your partner doesn't feel the same way, that's when things can start to get messy and they can start to feel like someone's feeling used. Someone does feel like they are just a receptacle
Hmm.
for whatever. And
Right.
it can really start to feel like we're missing out on something. And it's because you are. You're missing out on three other really important components of sexuality.
Okay. Okay. You made me feel a little better. Just like this much. This much.
I think what Dr. Lay was trying to say is that some people will say, well, we just have sex to really just get the physiological tension out of our bodies, and we turn to each other to do that, and we're both in on it.
Okay. Okay. Is
There's
that
a
kind of like a
reason
booty
that
call?
people, yeah, it can be. It can be. And again, I recognize that there is something really fun and exciting that can happen when you're just like, I just want you to make me orgasm. Like there's something really exciting about that. But if that's all there is, and I'm talking again,
Okay.
long-term relationships, if that's all
Okay.
there is, you're gonna run into problems. So it's not that in and of itself, looking for a release is a bad thing or it's a wrong thing to do or it's unhealthy. But when you're in a committed long-term relationship and it's monogamous, you gotta have more. There's more pieces to the
Yeah, for
puzzle.
sure. You definitely have to have more. I'm going to steer the chat has lots of questions and they've been,
Okay.
kind of picking us through the intimacy, but I want to steer us back onto divorce because, guys, this what the month of August has been about. We're really unpacking how to properly have a divorce, and navigating our intimacy is very important through this process. So I'm curious, while separated, how do you appropriately have the conversation of having intimacy with other people while you're.
Um, While you're well, I think a lot of it has to do with how it's going to impact the household. So
Okay.
if you're bringing in strangers, it can feel very disrespectful. If
Okay.
you are going out and spending the night overnight somewhere and y'all still haven't, and you're still living in the same household, that might be something to discuss. Not that you need permission, but when you're still living with someone, it doesn't matter who you are, there is a level of respect and that you want to maintain, or else things can get very uncomfortable in your daily life just living together. Uh, Now, that would also mean that you would have to then share with your ex if you decide to have sex with them again. You might want
Mhm.
to get an STD, an STI check. You want to let them know, I'm no longer monogamous with you. Those are all things that you want to do as a consenting adult, and give them the opportunity to make sure that they're at the forefront of taking care of their health. But I think for a lot of people, it is about, if you can keep it private,
Mhm.
especially if it's a really contentious divorce. I think it's important for you to keep things private. You don't need to be on every single dating app. You don't need to be flaunting that you're already out there with someone else. I think it can also be very confusing to those around you. They'll probably worry about, well, has your heart healed? Have you properly moved on? And that doesn't look any one particular way. I mean, in my practice all the time, I'm trying to help people to navigate this, and it never looks the same. Everybody's journey is very different, and lots of people have different factors that they have to consider. But more often than not, I would say being respectful is really important, and being respectful of the history that you have together will get you to a better place.
You said something incredible. I am no longer monogamous with you. That is a very simple way, a very clear and direct way of expressing that idea. I don't think people do that.
No, I think that they're scared to do it. And if they're scared to do it, then they probably feel like there's something wrong with what they're doing. And I can't say that there's something wrong with what they're doing. It might be wrong in how they're doing it. And that's where we can help.
So I think that honestly, people don't have the words. I mean, I've never heard it put so simply. Hi, I just wanted you to know that I'm no longer monogamous with you. Very plain and simple, very adult way of, expressing it, but I've never had that heard that put so clearly.
Well, thanks. I've had a lot of practice. I hear that a lot from clients. They're like, oh, I've been trying to say something, but now you just said it in a way. Let me write that down. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad
Mhm.
that it helps. But it's just a lot of experience helps me to really hone in on some of the things that people want to say but don't really know how to say it. And I think that's a big reason why people come to see me repeatedly. Maybe over years they'll come back for something different, is because they recognize that through my expertise and through working with so many people, that I can kind of get to the point a little faster than maybe others.
Mm-hmm.
But I also let them know, like, this worked for somebody else, but it may not work for you. And I'll probably use whatever works with you for somebody else.
There you go. You know what? You are the collector of the secrets, right?
I know, and that's why I wanted to get this out in a book,
Mm-hmm.
honestly. I have had so many different book ideas over the years, and this one I thought, okay, this is the one that if I only had one chance to write a book
Okay.
and put something out there, this is the one that I would say I have to. The others, they're in the hopper and they'll always be there, and I'm going to try to get the information out in some really fun, exciting ways. But as far as getting a book out, this is the one that I feel like I just needed to get stuff that was in here out.
I'm so glad you did. Can you give us a few other trade secret lines that really help people navigate their relationships? Because you've given some gems, and I hope everyone's taking notes because you've truly given some gems. What other phrases work really well?
So something that has to do with affair recovery, which is a big part of what we do, especially in my practice at Houston Relationship Therapy. Uh, Affair recovery, believe it or not, 70% of couples who experience betrayal in cheating and infidelity, they do end up staying together.
Mm-hmm,
And for
mm-hmm.
those, the people who go to therapy and really work through it, at least half of them will say that they feel like they're stronger after the affair, which is not something that somebody who's going through it would ever say, hey, it's worth it. Let's do it. No, it's not worth it. I'm telling y'all right now, don't cheat. Do not do it. It's not worth it. But you can come out of it in a good place. It may not be better, it may not be amazing, but you can. And so, one of the things that I was talking to with a couple recently was saying that when trust is lost, especially right at the beginning, you can say, okay, I'm looking down the road and I feel like there is a big brick wall in the distance that I know it's there. I can see it. It's a brick wall. And so I just don't even see how we're going to even possibly get over that or past it when the time comes, when time has passed, when there's been some healing. And so they don't even try. And I say, look, through the process of working through affair recovery, you may find that by the time you get to that wall, that it may still be a brick wall, but it's not 6 feet deep, it's 6 inches deep. And that might be worth trying to get to and work through. But you won't know that until you get there together. So that's something that I think
Fair
resonates with some
recovery.
people.
Look at that. That is worth
What's going on?
that is worth the price of tea in all of China. Seriously, that line, um, cheaters, write that down.
Don't do it.
No, this is what you need to tell your mate, darling. We can go to a fair recovery. I heard Dr. Vivian.
You know, I'm really excited about the work that I've been doing in this particular department because,
Okay,
again, I'm working with people who are together for such a long time.
okay.
And we're human and we have needs and we make mistakes. And a lot of that ends up accounting for and pointing towards infidelity. I would
Mhm.
love, just like with my premarital counseling program, I would love it if people came in to work through affair prevention, but most
Ooh,
people don't.
affair prevention. That's a good one
Mhm.
too.
That's going to be a part of what I'm working on too. So it'll all be out there. But I wish that people did that. But guess what? They don't. They
Yeah.
come in after the fact. It's really, really scary.
if you can get me in your schedule, we should just come and talk about affairs, the whole thing, affair
Mhm.
prevention, affair recovery, hiding my affair.
It all comes to light, especially these days. There, I have so much in the hopper. Let me tell you, I have been gathering real ways that people found out that their partner was cheating or that they
Oh,
were found out cheating.
yeah.
It is the wildest. We do not live in a world where you can keep a secret these days.
Well,
Don't
give
even
us a
try.
good one. Give us a good one. Give us a good one. How did someone find out?
Um, oh gosh, somebody did well, there's 23andMe. That's happening a lot now. Um, I've had
How does
so
that
many
work? Wait,
people
wait, wait. How does 23andMe make people,
well,
find
they'll
out?
find out that there are secret children out
Oh,
there.
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there's secrets to the biological dad. I mean, that happens too, where somebody, they didn't realize. Uh, so many cloud pictures that show up on kids' iPads. That happens a lot, and it's
Yes,
so
yes.
sad. And I mean, it's traumatic for lots of reasons, right? But that
Mhm.
happens a lot. A lot of work phones that end up getting synced with personal um, people who uh, people who were found out because there was a private investigator for insurance reasons, and then it turns out that they catch them with a paramour. I mean, yeah, there's a lot out there.
Your
But
job is exciting.
I love it, but it's not like that doesn't excite me. That makes me sad, right? I think a lot of people do think that being a relationship therapist is very exciting, but for the most part, we're dealing with people at a very low. We're
Mhm,
dealing with people who envision their life would be one way and it's not.
mhm, mhm.
And they're finally reaching out for help to get it to be possible, to see if it's even possible, if it can be something that's satisfying. And couples, working with couples as much as I do, we have such capacity to love, but we
Mhm.
also have such capacity to hurt each other.
That's true. That's true. I'm curious, what can you do? What can you say to make people come to the precept? It's kind of fun to be silly about it, right?
Yeah,
And it's like the
sure.
23 and
Some
me,
levity.
right? I mean, that's kind of fun. But then if we can get people to come to you, dial your phone number, look up your website before they cheat, before they go on Tinder or whatever website it is to, find, you know,
Ashley Madison or
yeah,
yeah, or even just going to work. I mean, so many people, the vast majority of infidelity happens in a workspace. You know,
I agree. I've heard that too. Because you have the work wife and the work husband, and
you spend so much time there, and I think a lot
yeah,
of people feel like they're in the same boat, or they feel like it's almost like camp, and you get very close to people, and you
mhm.
experience these pseudo close relationships, even though you never see each other outside of work. It's kind of I think it fulfills a need for connection when we're not
Okay.
at home. Mhm.
What is it about work beyond that? 'Cause is it the accomplishment too? Like, how could we bring some of that into the home life?
It's very important to seek ways to feel that achievement at home. If you notice that your partner is really struggling with finding a sense of purpose, a sense of achievement um, at home, just
Mhm.
know our human selves are looking for that somewhere. It doesn't always end up with infidelity or looking for achievement in that way or kind of that prowess, that gold star sexually. That's not what I'm saying. But I
Okay.
think there is a real need to experience accolades and praise and compliments. I know my husband was, it was really sweet. I'll air something that he told me. Um, he would, because we were out somewhere and like 2 or 3 different people commented on something that I was wearing, and they were like, "Gosh, you look so pretty in that. That's so pretty." And when we got home, he goes, "How many times do people tell you that they like what you're wearing, or that they like your look or whatever?" I was like, I mean, I guess it just depends, but I would say, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 times, depending if I'm on set, a whole lot more. I mean, it's really sweet,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of special. And he's like, you know that some people, and I wish I knew, and maybe somebody in the chat knows the statistic, but some people receive only like 3 compliments in a year.
Really?
Yes, there's it. I wish I could look it up, but it's a really sad number. It could be 7 compliments, but it's something crazy to where you're like, and I said, wow, we need to compliment people more when we go out. And he's like, I already started. I feel like telling somebody, hey, I like your shoes, or hey, nice car, or you know, and he, it's different from men. He doesn't want to be seen as a creeper, but he does find ways to say like, oh, that's a cool watch, or your child is so well behaved, things like that, that are compliments that people don't see. Well, if you're not getting those compliments, but we still need it and we still want to be seen, it might happen outside of the relationship.
Mm. So it's very important to compliment your partner, whether it's their look, their intelligence, their shoes, their watch, whatever. It's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And to have them feel seen by you, and appreciation, right? I mean, we could do a whole other thing on appreciation and the lack thereof that's happening in our households.
Hmm. You want to know something? I honestly think sometimes men do things for friends so they can get compliments. Have you ever heard like of a sometimes inside the house your something needs to be fixed. Your drain has been leaking for God knows how long. And then here the husband is going over to his buddy's house. What are you doing? Oh, we got to go fix the wash machine leak there. You're going, what?
Well, I think that a lot of men, women too, but a lot of men just they want to feel productive and useful, and
Yeah.
that's one way to do it. I think it's also because there will be appreciation, and maybe
Hmm.
even a 6 pack of beer, or a high five, or
Yeah.
feeling indebted, right? When you're at home and you do something, you don't think, oh, my partner owes me, I just did the dishes.
Hmm.
It's a long life to be keeping up with that sort of mess. But when it's with friends or family, sometimes it can be like, hey, I did this for you. Now you're indebted to me. And I feel like that can be unhealthy, but for the most part, I think it's pretty healthy.
I I'm just kind of rolling through some of my friends' relationships, and I know that their men thrive off of appreciation. It's almost like it's a currency.
Absolutely. And I think that for a lot of women, we're starting to realize we need to be our own biggest cheerleader, because we're just
Yeah.
not going to get that as much. I mean, fortunately, if you've set up a great relationship, that can happen. And if you're very vocal about what your needs are, it can happen. But in general, you're not going to have somebody behind you going, amazing job, this is awesome, like you're killing it. It's almost like we have to I say we, I'm talking about like kind of women in general, especially moms. Um, but a lot of times there is a sense of, it's a thankless job. It's a
Yeah.
thankless job. And then when our kids tell us, thank you, mommy, or, um, somebody gives us a card that says like, thank you for doing that. That was so sweet of you. It does feel good. It feels good to do for others. And I think a lot of times we don't do that at home. And a lot of the clients that I'm seeing, the reason that they are in the state that they're in is because they have not put the oxygen mask on their own relationship.
Mm. So is being grateful, is that an intimacy style? I'm sorry, or appreciation? Is that part of an intimacy style?
I think it's part of being a good partner in general, a good friend. a good employer, a good employee. I mean, I think if you care about whatever type of relationship you're in, that showing appreciation and being thankful, we talk about having an attitude of gratitude. There's
Yeah.
a behavior behind that attitude too. There's an expectation of, it's not just an attitude, like go out there and tell somebody how much you appreciate them. Give them kudos, give them praise, let them know that what you noticed. I think we tend to think about it in terms of like with our kids,
Mm-hmm.
we can be pretty good about applauding our kids when they do something extraordinary. And then parenting books will tell you everything can be an extraordinary thing. You letting them know that they turned off every light when they left the house, how grateful you are for that. That can be an extraordinary thing. But I think for a lot of people, they just take so much for granted, maybe not intentionally, but because they have so much going on that they just don't notice.
I love it. So I'm going to give a few wrap up points, but I want you to give us some long standing advice. So far, what I gathered is no booty calls when you're getting divorced.
Yeah. Um, it's just not likely to be as perfectly tidy as you'd like.
Okay, that is a bad idea. Be straightforward when you're no longer being monogamous. I
Yep.
love that. And
Yeah.
remember to show your children how to make up and recover from an argument. Those are gems. I
Oh,
love it.
thank you. Thank you so much. I learned so much from my clients. I really, really adore them for that and their vulnerability and their openness and all of that because they've shown me not just the presenting problem but also the resolution like we've been talking about. I've been
Hmm.
and able to help so many others.
Awesome. And if you wouldn't mind giving us just three more tips, because I'm just loving all of your knowledge, I would greatly appreciate it.
Well, I think when it comes to intimacy, um, it's so important to find the words, to learn how to communicate. Getting a book like The Four Intimacy Styles can help you. It really can. If you're not into books, do the quiz online. I put out so many podcasts like this. I've been on a book tour and so many interviews. You can get the information in one way, shape, or form. Of course, I'd love to sign and dedicate every hard copy for you. So if you order it online, I'd love to do that. I think it's so much fun. But get the book. I really do think that it's an important piece of what will soon be your relationship history and that it helps to reroute you. It will help you even if you're single. I've had a lot of people ask me, is the Four Intimacy Styles for single people? It will prepare you for being a really great long-term partner. And who doesn't want to have the tools to do that ahead of time? Again, we're talking about prevention. We're talking about really trying to be proactive. So absolutely that's the case. I would also say that making sure that you are talking to your kids about healthy sexuality, that's a big part of being a better partner when you're an adult. No message is still a message. No information is still a message. Like I have so many clients who would have benefited from getting some sort of guidance when it comes to sexuality and they are forever trying to figure it out on their own and feel like they're flailing, at 20, 30, 40 years old. So I think it's important to have those really honest, open communication and to keep it open for a long time. And if you struggle with it, making sure that they know maybe you're not the person to talk to because it's not your specialty, but you will help them find the person who is. So that's always very important. I also think it's important to make sure that if you are unhappy, that you say it. Do not assume that your partner is going to be able to read your look, your posture, the tone of your voice. we have way too many distractions to be able to be totally zoned in and focused on your eye roll.
Oh, wow. So be verbal. Be verbal.
Yeah.
That's really
And
important.
that's an investment, right? I mean, when you partner up with somebody, you can't drag everything out of them. They're not expecting that, just like you would hope that you don't have to do that for them. So I do think it's important to be very vocal and let them know. And don't just say something once. If it really matters to you, say it again and again. And if they can't listen, take them to therapy and we can figure out, everything together.
Fair enough. Great, great, great advice. Great information. You were just a joy to have on. I am so thankful.
Thank you. I appreciate you and your audience.
My pleasure. Okay, family. I hope Dr. Viviana will come back with us again. We have more things to talk about. We have to talk about achievement. Look, guys, who we're having on, we're going to talk about high impact mentorship. I dropped the link for you. Right below, so be sure to click on it. We'll be starting right away. Tonight was a double header. We can't stop thank Dr. Viviana enough. Be sure to go out and buy her book, The Four Intimacy Styles. I believe that you will be so happy that you made this investment, not just in your relationship, but in yourself. So I'll see you in just a moment. Until next time, bye bye for now.